welcome to Saturday streaming for the 27th. We've had quite a party in this house. It's Joanna's 10th birthday today, so
big time.
Yeah, we're on a bit of a sugar high. Are you running okay?
Yeah.
For those new to Saturday streaming or haven't seen Chloe or I before, we're here in Millthorpe, in our little studio in Millthorpe, and in the Tablelands, in the soft country, right in the heart of Wiradjuri country, very happy to say. And we've been doing these Saturday streamings last year and this year, and we finally got to, it must be about the 32nd Saturday night show we've done. We thought we'd do our own work. So 2 weeks ago, we spent 4 years in Sydney trying to get out.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah, at the show.
Oh, in the show.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Now I'm with you.
Say good day if you're out there. It's always nice to know, but it looks like we're going out live and clear.
Yep.
So good. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, so part one, we were in Sydney and we were playing indie kind of original rock and roll music, I guess, and pop music. More pop me, more rock and roll here.
Fair enough.
And then we joined forces and started writing music together and found that a very easy thing to do. So we did it quite a lot at that stage.
I think for most of our time in Sydney, we knew we wanted to get out. We were used to, if you saw last show, you'll know, we were very used to playing country pubs and country gigs for money and for good times. Long, big jam nights, we were never a cover band, but we knew a million little riffs and half songs, and we could play country pubs for a long time. You're only ever as good as your drummer, and we had a couple of beauties, so we were fine. So we knew that we wanted to play music more, and we knew that to do that you had to do it for a job, and that was a pretty elusive concept. We weren't folkies at all. Our only sort of experience of the folk world had been one trip to Woodford, which did blow our minds and concreted the fact that we wanted it to be like Woodford all the time, and the best we could find was Bathurst, getting out of Sydney.
Yeah, we were looking for the parallel universe. And
okay.
Bathurst was an absolute thriving place as far as music goes, because the Bathurst Folk Club was in full swing. And they had, how's this for a folk club? They had a Tuesday night once a month, a blackboard, so a local act and supports.
Maybe 80 or 90 people for a sort of, a local act or a guest and support.
It was occasionally a guest, but more local. Because they also had a concert once a month that was a guest act from somewhere outside. And at that point, it was people like Jez Lowe.
Oh, yeah, Andy
Lawson.
Irvin, of course. Andy was a regular in Bathurst.
Wonderful concerts. And also a session night once a month. So all of that going once a month and really well attended. So we really landed in, our happy place when we arrived in Bathurst.
So why Bathurst? Well, I knew there was a good music scene, and I was very aware of the band Cocky's Joy, one of my favourite bands of all time, with Mike Martin and Roger Hargraves up front, and the sublime rhythm section of Tony Denmead on drums and Chris McCusker on bass. And they were a bush band in the sense they played bush dances and they played some Australian traditional music, but they were just a great trad rock pub band. They were just the best. So there we were in Bathurst. And we thought we'd start tonight with the first thing I remember writing in Bathurst. So we're talking about winter, 96, in our little fibro house in Stewart Street. And we picked a Henry Lawson piece.
We did. It was the shortest one in the book, which is probably why we picked it. But also because the theme of it is very much about going home.
Yeah.
And I think we had a bit of that feeling. Here's a fella, he's finished his work, he's going home. And it felt a bit like that. Also, Jason was inspired to write a little waltz called Jumble Springs for his sister, who just got married.
Just got married, and Jumble Springs was the property they were on, Wheaton sheep property, and so Jumble Springs.
So Henry Lawson's words, yes, and just our tune. Wages are paid and the sprees have begun, but never a shanty draw sight of my Jack, for far down the Murray my Annie expects a heart that is faithful, a head that is clear, and sufficient provisions to last for a year.
That was it. The first thing I remember writing in Bathurst, we were having our eyes widened to the idea of what folk music was at a regional level. You know, like we just said, Bathurst was the hub of folk music in so many ways.
And we did have one of our first gigs at the Bathurst Folk Club, and we were a bit nervous. We were used to playing in pubs where it was loud. You know, you could almost forget that anyone was actually listening to you. Either they were dancing or they were yelling at each other. You know. And we were there at the Bathurst Folk Club playing our original songs, and it was silent. It was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And Jason said, we're not really used to this, you know. I'm a bit nervous. And a voice from the back, Jeff Wynne, said, yeah, I'd be nervous, he said.
All of a sudden I was at home again.
Yeah, and I wasn't. Jason was more comfortable with the heckling.
Anyway, it was a great scene to land in, and we ended up so busy with gigs, busier than we'd ever been very quickly. But we also knew it was time to record our second CD, so we were inspired by the landscape. We wanted to catch a bit of both the history and the landscape, but we were still writing, well, all kinds of songs really, but there was an idea that they'd all fit into that sort of category. And we'd met Mike Martin by this stage, and he was playing a little bit with us on our own songs. But then we met Paul Nunn and Michelle at the studio out on, the studio's out behind Chifley Dam there. But the idea was that we would go to an old place out of town, an old Wattle and Daub place that was the home of a mutual friend of ours, Mark Adams. A beautiful old 19th century Wattle and Daub place, really old and amazing in its spaces. Paul knew it sounded incredible, and the challenge was Paul brought in his beautiful microphones and his fantastic preamps and all the whiz-bang gear of the time, and the idea was we'd throw sounds around that space to record the albums.
We were worried at one point, you know, there was a really bad noise, a horrible noise, and there was nothing we could do about it, and we couldn't find it. Paul was going nuts. It was a fly. It was a fly really close, just sitting on one of the condenser microphones. Anyway, we worked out the problems, and it really did turn out sounding beautiful.
Yes. That album's called Feet in the Dirt, Head in the Clouds, and actually we gave it a bit of a spit and polish remaster
That
the
little
other
brown
day.
one.
Yeah. And it was it was good to hear it again after all this time. And, one of the songs we wrote was a song. It was dry that winter, and it had been dry. But I think in this song, we were also thinking back. I was moving back home to a certain extent, and my previous times on farms around Bathurst, and we were soon to end up on a farm there ourselves, had been in the 80s when the drought was very severe. So it coloured my impression. As most people who grow up on farms, you know, dry times are something to get over.
clouds and you're flying there. Over the Bathurst Plains, the river's running low. Hardly a drop of water in the sunburned orange glow. Black Crow, he's doing fine, with plenty to eat these days. Farmers can't keep stock alive when the land is blowing away. Over the Bathurst Plains, the river's running low. Hardly a drop of water in the sunburnt orange glow. Rolls over us all, and the Black Crow is watching. He's close and he's waiting for one more lamb to fall. Bathurst Plains, the river's running low. Hardly a drop of water.
It's been a lot of fun revisiting these songs we haven't sung since we made them. That album came out in '97. Now, one of the reasons we continued to write a lot through this time, but the real truth of the matter is we were being introduced to the Australian traditions in all their varieties. In fact, we were starting to feel like we were drinking from several fire hoses coming at us of Australian traditional music. But the big one, the first meeting, was someone I knew from the old Cocky's Joy days, but only as someone in Cocky's Joy really, and that was Mike Martin. We met up with Mike and very
Mike
quickly
spotted us a mile off. He said, "Right, want to play in a bush band?" And the next thing we knew, we were working in Jindy, and it was a great little band. It got regular gigs, and I started off on bass, and we had a flute player, and the guitar, and Mike on the concertina, and then the flute player left. So there we were. And Mike said, "Well, you're going to need to learn the tunes." So the next Woodford, I was sitting up there in the shade of the car learning tunes on a mandolin, which I hadn't really imagined I would be doing. But it turned out really well. That was it. That was the beginning of everything.
I think
really.
we mentioned it last show that we bought the mandolin for me. We were playing just in Sydney. We hooked up with this great guy and his country band, and he wanted to. Anyway, we didn't last long in the band. It was kind of a little bit side.
But we did get a mandolin.
But we did buy his mandolin, and I just kept writing riffs and saying, "Chloe, can you play this while I play a guitar part behind it?" And then through Mike and Bert Jamison and J.H. tunes, it was all about that, wasn't it? So that was our introduction to Bathurst, was ending up playing with Mike really quickly. And we also moved out to a farm just outside of Taranaki called Ryland on the train line out there. Big old open plan house that was really conducive not only to sessions with all these wonderful new players around the Bathurst area, but the touring folkies, of course.
It was a huge house, much too big for us with our 3 sticks of furniture, but it did have enough space for people to stay. So we had wonderful visitors. We started, putting up whoever was coming to the Bathurst Folk Club, and it was a wonderful time. We had Harvest Moon come to stay, and various people. We used to tithe them a song, get them to play us a song before they left, and they'd give us a song.
So yet again, like last week when we talked about our songs, we don't really know what we're going to do when we dip into the muddy old fish tank of music, but in reaction to all this traditional music coming at us from Mike and from Rob Willis by this point in big quantities, the work of Carrie Milliner and Sally Sloan.
So Mike was collecting tunes from Joe Yates, and then we met Rob Willis at the National Folk Festival, and he introduced us to Carrie Milliner, and in amongst all of that came this recognition, which was more of a realisation for me. I think Jason probably had a bit of an idea, but I hadn't really understood how much of that dance tradition there was in Australia, that there'd been dances almost every night of the week if you'd gone back a ways, and that it was just kind of disappearing. People's accordions were up in the cupboard getting dusty, and the generations were going by, and we wrote this one.
For Mike, really, but for everyone who's playing those tunes. So we were writing, and this is the sort of way we were responding to, I guess, what we were doing. Is that fair enough? Yeah. Bush dances. Oh, it was so much fun. So much fun.
Stories and songs of this country from days before TV, when gold was still found, and the tunes that he played had a style all Australian, flowing as endless as a spring from the ground. And there in the goldfields were all kinds of people, many who travelled so far from their homes. So Grandad knew Germans and Curries and Irish, shared with them music and stories and poems. But I never learned how to play concertina, happy enough with my foot keeping time. Somewhere I guess I just took it for granted, the songs of the bush would still be there next time. This country was growing, its character showing. We're tough dancing drinkers, always good for a laugh. And the songs we were singing were no longer homesick, our bush rangers shearing in this country we love. But I never learned how to play concertina, happy enough with my foot keeping time. And somewhere I guess I just took it for granted, the songs of the bush would still be there next time. Next time. Indeed, when the songs of our history need be collected all over again. But the old people die, taking with them their memories. The melodies vanish like they've never been. And I never learned how to play concertina, happy enough with my foot keeping time. Somewhere I guess I just took it for granted, the songs of the bush would still be there next time. I never learned how to play concertina, happy enough with my foot keeping time. And somewhere I guess I just took it for granted, the songs of the bush would still be there next time. Grandad knew stories and songs of this country.
That's a tune called Father's Waltz. It was one of the JH tunes that Mike taught us. So yes, we joined up with Jindy and we recorded an album of JH tunes with Mike and Steve Teagle, Stretch. What an experience. We joined up with other musicians like Tony Denmead from Cocky's Joy would come around and jam on a Tuesday night. Nikki Fenton in those days was in Bathurst and we were singing with Nikki. We had all of a sudden so many gigs. But the other thing that came up, and I guess Mike was a quite common accomplice in this, was big drives were becoming more and more frequent. So if you did see the last show, you'll remember that when we were playing for those 4 years in Sydney, and indeed I guess before we met, for me, driving was freedom, and it was country gigs, and it was the life of the road, and it was always a lot of fun, and it was a lot of miles, but nowhere near as much as we ended up doing around this time. So late 90s, early 2000s, we started getting very intense. And one of the areas that was really opening up for us was the Illawarra. We'd met up with David Banyuk, and we'd been to Jamboree Festival, Kiama Festival.
Yeah. And we were travelling down to play at the various hotels there up the coast, the Clifton, at Mount Kembla. Sure. Mount Kembla was a regular one for us. We were driving down for that. Musicians inevitably have to travel to where the money was. But at least we were not in Sydney anymore.
Yes.
And because Sydney is very hard to find anywhere to actually pay your money to play. I think the Jolly Frog was one of the few places.
Yeah, we did luck out with a few club gigs here and there, but it was tough.
Yep, now we were bouncing around out here and down the south coast, doing that drive a lot.
And the truth of the matter is we just found our folk family, so that was opening up for us as well. All the festivals were opening up, and this immense array of traditional music and influences from wonderful people we'll never mention enough. But this song comes from earlier, and my time in Sydney, the old rock and roll days with Diamond Tina and Bliss Bomb, and those times I was doing my share of peak hour driving. I had an old HQ panel van, no straight panels. I didn't dent them. They were just dented when I got it. And a steer's head on the front. It was a great old rock and roll car. And I basically lived in it. I had my stuff stored at Nan's at Blacktown, and sometimes would end up there. But really the back of the panel van was home, and you'd be playing music pretty much every night. And you had your guitar, you had everything you needed with you. And that meant you ended up, no matter what you did, in peak hour quite a lot with a big old beast of a thing. Not everyone could change gears in that car.
No.
Pop and I rebuilt the gear linkages after a dead kangaroo ripped them out once. But anyway, there was an act to it, let's say. And anyway, I used to sit in peak hour, and I had my guitar with me. So the thing I used to do was get my Les Paul out with the shorter neck. And that's how I spent my time in peak hour. Nothing on the radio worth hearing. So I just play, and that's where I wrote this one. Driving in peak hour and remembering what it was like to not drive in peak hour. So I talk about quitting my job in this song, but really it's all kind of dream stuff, you know.
Aww.
Well, it came true eventually. Yeah. All right.
It did.
Couldn't take it no the company floor, 'cause I could not take that shit no more, no more. Couldn't take it no more. Well, I've been rolling on 4 wheels for days and nights on the road, and it feels alright. Said it feels alright. Well, I quit my job on the company floor, 'cause I could not take that no more, no more. I couldn't take it no more. Well, I quit my job on the company floor, 'cause I could not take that. Yes. Indeed, eventually, and I guess that's where we led up to Bathurst. I didn't quit my job. In fact, I was working for the Co-op Bookshop at Sydney University. We might talk a bit more about that. I call it the sheltered workshop for artists and musicians in Sydney in those days. We've got another song relating to that time. But yeah, I ended up working a little bit at the CSU at Bathurst in the bookshop, and that helped make the move too. But in amongst all of this, we did that thing that I guess the only way to describe it is turn professional. That's what we really wanted, as I mentioned, was to play more music. And the only way we could think of to play more music was to not have to do anything else, basically.
We were lucky. I got to take a bit of my old job with me to Bathurst. I got to do some desktop publishing via fax and post. And Jason picked up his job at the Co-op, which later adapted to working the rushes at the Co-op, and we slowly weaned ourselves off work. It was tough. But
I still feel, 25 years later, I still feel like one of those cartoon characters where if you keep running and don't look down after you go off the cliff, you just keep going. But it worked in the sense that we got to do this every day. We'd been together at that point for 4 years and writing music every day, but we really wanted to spend more time doing it, and that's how it worked out. But talking about writing in cars, and this subject comes up again and again, it came up last show too, the hours we were doing in the car when we turned professional, when literally for months at a time there'd be more gigs than days, doing Us Not Them as our duo, but Jindy, Wongawilli, then slowly Collector formed around the Bathurst area, and all of the other gigs and festivals we were doing. We're pretty aware of the risks, and we would use the time as best we could. In those days, using the time probably meant thinking a bit about the gig on the way there. If you probably stopping for a beer on the way somewhere to run through a few tunes with whoever you're with. And on the way back, you're just trying to get home safely, really. We had a 4-hour rule, and still do, I guess. And that's 4 hours is where we'll go home after a gig, given that we've got 2 drivers in the car and all that sort of thing.
So generally after a gig you're rabbiting, you're talking, you're discussing things, and you don't actually feel tired for a while. But once you hit, after that 3-hour mark, you start to feel tired. So 4 hours was max. That was how far we would go. Otherwise you'd have to stay. And we were just saying yes. We were just saying yes to the jobs at that point.
Yes, if there's been a business policy, it's been say yes, then work out how to do it. And that's we were doing a lot of that. But certainly once we'd joined Wongawilli, and that added to everything then. Yeah, and then moved to Jamboree.
We did. Actually, if I picture the road I was thinking of writing the words for this next song, it is coming down that highway from Sydney to Wollongong. And, you hit the Bullo Pass and down you come, or Mount Bisley, whichever way you're going, down to the sea. So this was just a set of words with a bit of an idea for a chorus tune. And we've found it in the folder.
Yeah, 20 years ago. So, Jamboree 20 years ago, about 2000, something like that.
But we never finished the song until this
No,
week.
So it's a debut, folks, a new song.
So let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. This dark road is strewn with flowers, held with ribbons fading slow. Death waits in stagnant pools, just beyond the headlights glow. Each flash of white, each cross, another hero falls behind. have sung, and I have earned my fee. Now the battle lines are drawn between this road and me. Destination, the flaming sky, the swift slide down to the sea, suspended between moon and mist. Possibility. 4 hours there, 4 hours there, 4 more hours back again. I have played away the cares of the people gathered there. Now memories ring where I have been. Ghostly fishermen float by, suspended on their narrow bridge, they catch my weary eye. While the city sleeps, a battle rages between the money in my hand, the slap of cold wind in my face, and my eyelids full of sand. 4 hours there, for 4 hours there, for 4 more hours back again. I have played away the cares of the people gathered there. Now memories ring where I have been. This hero's road seems peaceful now, and I may yet survive. Many a brave soul thinks to travel, many a soul does not arrive. Hard-won coins here in my pocket, half-formed songs yet unexpressed. I shall see through whole lives thankful when at last I get to rest.
This Hero's Road was words from 20-something years ago, and pretty much the idea for the song, I think.
Yeah, the chorus was certainly there.
And while,
In a way.
yeah, it's never... We've done a lot of miles all the time, and part of the thing is we love it, and, you know, so it's a complex issue for musicians, but miles, that's a very big part of the deal, and we never drove as much as we drove in those days. This next song was written in the car too, funnily enough. We had joined Woolloomooloo, and that opened up a whole world of things. Hi guys, hi Mark. Oh yes, thanks for posting about Robin and the Steelers CD. And happy birthday, Joanna. Yes, Kathy, happy birthday to our kid. We've been partying all day, we have. And we'll party tomorrow too, no doubt. Yeah, we joined with Woolloomooloo. That was a quick conversation at Port Fairy. I mentioned that the Illawarra had been opening up gigs, the old Mount Kembla pub days and Austin Mere Fair. I could keep going. So we were driving down there a lot anyway, as well as working hard in Bathurst, doing all of the local bush dances by that stage with Mike and all the other things that were opening up around festivals, driving. And we were at Port Fairy with us, not them, the duo. And David had some changes coming in the Woolloomooloo band. John Harpley and Neil McCann were about to take a break. And David, who we only really had just met a couple of months before, but we had a couple of jams, and he said, I don't... In fact, Abercrombie Caves was the big meeting of a Woolloomooloo gig out there. Wonderful stuff. To play on that dance floor in that cave with those guys. Anyway, David said, I don't suppose you, in reference to the people leaving Woolloomooloo, he said, I don't suppose you've ever thought about moving to the Illawarra. And of course we honestly had thought about it. So much as we knew it was moving away from home, the tablelands in the Central West, we thought this adventure is too good not to go on. So it was the Woolloomooloo band, but it was all of the two festivals, the Jamboree Folk Festival.
Yeah, so there's the Woolloomooloo Dances on a Wednesday, and there was the Jamboree Festival and the Kiama Festival, and Kiama was just, we have a very soft spot for Kiama. It was one of our favourite evers. And the thought of being down there and involved with all those people and with those festivals was, that was an exciting time. So we did. We skipped down to Jamboree and we started doing all the same trips in reverse. So driving up to Bathurst.
The first time I went to a poet's breakfast ever at a folk festival, I made a list of them just because the list was unbelievable.
A list of the people who were at the poet's breakfast.
Yeah, so the poet's breakfast, the little folk festival at Kiama, had John Dengate, Frank Daniel, one of the very best, Milton Taylor, Viv Sawyer and Di, of course. Dennis Kevins was there, Archbishop, and Blue the Shearer. And Blue, at this point we got to know Blue pretty well, and we recorded music for his CD. We were headed out to Wellington to help Blue launch his album, and it was in November, and the Paterson's curse was thick. And Dob Ian in again. Ian Large, our friend, was with us, and we started talking about the various names that it had been around for Paterson's curse. And Chloe was in the back seat. Ian was riding shotgun, and Chloe started scribbling words. I could hear the brain ticking from the front seat. And we didn't actually finish the song until we moved to Jamboree, so that puts this song in about 98. I remember writing the B section of the tune down there at Jamboree.
Just remembering that photo's 98, isn't it?
Yeah.
98.
If you wanted to sum up our introduction to the tradition in one photo.
There's a great combination there of collector band members and Woolloomooloo band members. So
playing on the street at
All Cocky's Joy, or Jindy.
Yeah, Bobby
It's
Campbell's just out the back there too. So it was the New Year's Eve dance at Golden. Anyway, back to Salvation Jane. All the various words for this wonderful noxious weed that only comes out at certain times in the spring, but when it does come out, it's spectacular, especially butted up against a paddock of canola when you get the bright yellow and the purple. Beekeepers love it. Apiarists love it. Salvation Jane honey, pretty popular stuff.
But also, that wonderful contradiction of being a lifesaver and poison at the same time. It's got to be a metaphor for love, don't you think?
Mark says, what a lineup of poets. It sure was.
Know.
I changed. It had my whole mind about what poetry was.
That was
changed.
the joy
Yeah.
of Kiama, is that it introduced us to the Australian traditional music scene in one place, in a small enough scope, so that you really did get to know all those people. And it was a very special thing. They held a band mix-up. You just got your name put in a hat and pulled out with 7 other people and played music with them, and it was a wonderful time. Anyway, we wrote this little tiny tune called Back from Kiama, in which I can hear myself going, tunes should go something like this.
We were so new to the tradition. We were actively seeking it out, but we were still writing, and this is the kind of thing we wrote. So a tune called Back from Kiama, and then a song from the same year, 98, called Salvation Jane.
the hillside, the year turns again, bringing honey sweet memories of salvation, Jane, taking me over for better or worse, my wildest of flowers, my Paterson's curse. On my side of the mountains, a man can see for miles, and I looked for a future in the depths of her smiles. But she was like a season that blew through my heart, rolling away from here right from the start. Just the same. In town the roses are blooming again. I drive these same roads, two wheels in the dirt. I'm safe as I ever was from her kind of hurt. But do you ever wonder in streets where you walk, artists and poets linger to talk? Do jacaranda blossoms ever blur in your eyes, turn to hills of wildflowers and bright evening skies? Of salvation, Jane, taking me over for better or worse, my wildest of flowers, my Paterson's curse.
So in amongst all the traditional music that was coming at us so fast, and we were working with and arranging and writing shows for and learning parts to be in other people's shows, we were still managing to write, but often it was in the car or just stolen moments here and there. And the other thing that I think we carried from our songwriting days into that tradition was, and sort of indicated by a couple of settings we've done already, is that we got the idea along the way that you could take other people's words and set them to music. And I was so in awe of people like John Dengate and their ability to tell those stories that I must admit, I don't think I bothered writing words for quite that often, really, because there were...
No, that's the truth. Once you get involved in the tradition and you're hearing the quality of the language and the quality of the words, it discouraged our own writing to a certain extent. We simply got, oh well.
That's Golgong for you.
We got more inspired by playing the tradition and learning from the tradition, I guess. And then slowly but surely regained some confidence and started setting those old words to music again until we got into all the Henry Lawson material later on.
Yeah. I said to John once when he said, are you writing songs still? When we first met, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, we sort of, a bit here and there, but to be honest, the traditional songs are kind of like hard taskmasters. Once you've got that tradition working for you, well, other people manage to do it. I mean, it's not that it's impossible, but for us, working with the tradition felt every bit as creative and vibrant. In fact, more so, I think, than the songs we'd been writing. Give you something else to talk about, too.
The depth of it, the roots and the context. I mean, you can hear we've been writing quite a lot of kind of love songs and pop songs and rock and roll songs, and it was a chance to dig a little deeper, I guess, with the tradition. And slowly but surely we came out the other end willing to use all the aspects of what we've learned. So the styles of music we'd been playing combined with the traditional words combined with bits of our own arrangements and bits of our own melody until you end up with things like this.
Yeah. John also did try and convince me that the merits, succeeded in convincing me of the merits of Banjo Paterson. If you know John, you'll know what a fan he was of banjo. So here's a small piece of banjos and a very significant poem of John Dengate's put to music.
Tied together. In this war we're always moving on. When we make a friend, another friend is gone. Should a woman's kindly face make us welcome for a space, then it's boot and saddle, boys, we're moving on.
Ah, then who's your mate, me Johnny lad? So drunk he could hardly stand, with his eyeballs staring so wildly and his violently shaking hand. His name is not for the naming, but his story I'll tell you true. He's a child of the Great Depression, from the lanes of Woolloomooloo. He was reared on bread and dripping, and on dollops of Dole plum jam. Well, he dodged the police, and his father's boot, and his fare on the city tram. He mustered with the militia on the walls of Woolloomooloo. He fought disease and the Japanese in the summer of '42. Ah, never you mind his shaking hand or his strangely twisted mouth. He was cut off at Templeton's Crossing when the Jats came swarming south. He wept and he prayed in the jungle, and God to his prayers was deaf. It was Choco, retreat on your bleeding feet. And where was the AIF? You'll find him now in Bell's Hotel or round by the Domain. You'll find him under a Moreton Bay, sleeping it off in the rain. You'll find him wandering William Street without any work to do. He's a child of the Great Depression, from the lanes of Woolloomooloo. He's a hollow, dirty derelict, abandoned by the fates. His soul's at Templeton's Crossing with his dead militia mates. Why, the lady is his mistress. They fornicate and woo, scorning blind oblivion in the lanes of Woolloomooloo.
In the hospitals they're moving on. They're here today, tomorrow they are gone. When the bravest and the best of the boys, you know, go west, then you're choking down your tears and moving on.
And so the setting of words to music was a really big part. It already had been, in the sense that we started. You know, I think one of the first we knew was before we left Sydney, we heard Phil Lobel sing Past Karen. And we had, I might have mentioned in the last show, we were actively chasing out the tradition that I'd kind of remembered from being a kid. I had Merrow's Folk Songs Volume 2 was the best book I had at that point, and still one of the best books I own. And maybe it's not everyone's favourite of the collection of Australian music, but for me, because so much of the music he collected was from around here, I knew some of the families, I knew some of the people, and the stories and the stories and the stories. It was just too good. But we also had I picked up working at the Co-op bookshop, I picked up a 3 CD set, which had John Dengate singing Bill from Erskineville and Sally Sloan singing The Death of Ben Hall. Some wonderful things.
In retrospect, that was a pretty amazing collection to come across. Yeah. It was called Folk Sounds Australia, I think. Is that right?
Sing? Yeah, I can't remember. Ooh. It was an educational package, but the recordings were the real deal. You know, the Wild Colonial Boys were on there, and Jacko singing the F111, and all the good stuff. We didn't know the people. We were just about to meet them, but we didn't know the people at the time. And anyway, that was sort of where we'd been. We still had been writing songs, and we were still writing on the road. Here's another one from writing on the road. In this case, though, it was a little different. It was our honeymoon.
Oh, heavens, yes. Mm-hmm. We went down to Tasmania. for our honeymoon, which is a very fine idea. I tell you, that was wonderful.
The first
Staying at
of
the
many,
B&Bs.
many trips down to Tassie playing music and having
Yeah.
fun. Wow.
It was beautiful.
Our wedding
Anyway,
was, you know,
you want to say something about the wedding?
Well,
or
only
should we
that-
just move straight on?
4 years in Sydney. It was all right, wasn't it? It was terrible. No, it was good. It was a lovely wedding. We'd already been living together for 2 years, so it was kind of a formality. But 4 years in Sydney, we'd been living together 2 years. We got married. I remember the marriage as being the wedding as being a happy thing. But I love the night after the wedding where we put a night on at the Broadway Hotel in Sydney on Parramatta Road, and we just invited all of the old band members that we could think of, and they all came.
We had a jam session.
All three Brennan brothers were there. Matt was there as well from Adfa. He is a great blues player. Paul was on drums. It was a really good party. And then off to Tassie for the honeymoon, and it was sweet. It was very nice.
And we were staying at Cradle Mountain, and the weather was pretty dismal. But keen honeymooners, we want to go out and see the mountain before we settle down into our little cabin. And we went out to look at the mountain, and you couldn't see much. The fog was pretty low, to be honest. But we sat there and enjoyed the fact that we were there, and decided we'd come back in the morning.
Went back to our little cabin
our
there and chasing the paddy melons out while we wrote a song. That's what I remember.
It was classic. Oh, there's paddy melons. Shh, shh. What? Hey, no, get out. Yeah, so it went from aren't they sweet to get the hell out.
So
Anyway, but we wrote the song, and this is it. So forgive a bit of,
What?
joy.
Yeah, it's off the first record, and yes, it's a honeymoon song. Haven't played it for about 25 years either, I don't think.
Don't go. The colours of the mountain are filling up my eyes. Got a camera, I don't want to use it. Wanna walk here by your side. The mist rises in the valley. There's water on the ground. The cliffs fly all around us. Cradle Mountain spinning round. Lift me up there high on your shoulder. Let me learn how to fly. Feel the earth falling way down below me. Just once, let me try. So different to the mainland, where space can free the mind. Leave a red dust trail behind us. Chase the sunset to sunrise. Lift me up there high on your shoulder. Let me learn how to fly. Feel the earth falling way down below me. Just once, let me try. Lift me up there, high on your shoulder.
when we wrote it. From you're getting the idea, I'm sure, out there with our original songs that we don't really know what we're doing. We reach behind us. Tom Waits calls it the fish tank that he reaches into for his music. Well, our fish tank is very muddy. That's the way we describe it. Sometimes, in retrospect, we can sort of hear where we might have got something from. But most often, it's just reaching for something that there's appeal, and who knows.
Yeah, there's an end to that story, of course, because we wrote the song and we got up in the morning and we went out to see Cradle Mountain, and there it was in all its glory with this blue sky and the sunshine. And we'd been staring at a low hill. Cradle Mountain was actually over there. So this song, while we have the memories of Cradle Mountain in our mind when we're singing it, it was written before we'd actually seen the place.
We'd seen where it was.
Kind of,
yeah. No, so it's actually a song for Cradle Mountain's tiny little brother.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's for that little hill on the other side of the lake, yeah.
There's Co-op Bookshop, just once. I started there in 90. I'd moved to Bathurst once before from Sydney, getting our ass kicked, playing rock and roll, and knowing that the scene out there was better, that we could do better. And so a good friend of mine, Sean, and I tried, and it was a sort of a failed effort to move to Bathurst just by this much, in terms of hooking up with the local scene. But I'm kind of glad I did, because that's when I went back to Sydney, got a job at the Co-op and met Chloe, and
the rest is history.
That's where all this goes. That's where writing music every day for 30 years starts. But the Co-op Bookshop runs in rushes. Those who've been on the university campuses will know how it works. There's a rush in the start of semesters, and you're really super busy. You're moving tons of books. The job I liked best was working, when it was busy, in the storeroom, looking after the books as they came in. It was just good physical work, and it kept you going. Time passed really quickly. Serving the students was a pleasure. Arguing with lecturers over beers at Manning at lunchtime was just great. And when the rushes would come around, it was always a chance to give your mates in other bands jobs. They could come and work. And
I worked at the Co-op.
Yeah. My good mate Cameron from the Rainy Day Women. Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of people did. Anyway, it was a good scene. It was a really healthy scene, because when it was quiet, those are the days. But the boss would just say, just practice your guitar for a bit. It's all right. You want to read a book? Anyway, I love working there because I was surrounded by a wonderful array of books, of course. And not just the academic stuff, which I love to bits, but we had a general section, as we called it. And one novel that came across our paths in there was a novel. I don't know why it took off so much. I don't know. Maybe you can talk about that. It was a novel called Secret History.
It was just very creepy, because it was very, very kind of ordinary people doing terrible things.
Thanks, Kathy.
Is why it was a shock. Anyway, it was called Secret History, and this is the song of the same name. It's what Megan would call it, fan fiction.
That's right.
Except we're not changing the story. We're just fanning, really.
So just quickly, the us not them thing was just a joke, because we'd left all these heavy rock and roll bands. This is the kind of song we wrote where we were still probably imagining, and indeed did play this song with some heavy rock and roll bands, but not tonight.
Use your imaginations. blanket light, deaf to searching feet as they pack the ice above you, wrap the ice around you, and they leave you all gentle, pale, and sweet.
I actually read the book again last year.
Did you?
Yeah, Secret History. It's okay. It's okay. It's a good, pretty good novel. And that was Chloe's. Yeah, we were just getting into murder ballads too. And,
yes.
yeah. So what we've promised to do in these shows is do a couple of songs that go right back past the 30 years to school days or close to. And we've got a couple of them now.
Oh, boy.
I just used my overdrive pedal that I haven't used since the Exploding Cats days of 1985, I'm sure. So I've been thinking about school. But Chloe's got one first.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay.
I did tell the story about how we met and I joined with Chloe's band last show, but just quickly, we met through a mutual friend, Cameron, and jammed the first night we met, and then the idea came up. Chloe had a younger band and first band for her, and our mutual friend Cameron was kind of managing, I guess you'd say, at that point. Certainly
Yeah,
did a bit
he'd
later
offered
on.
to be our manager and help us get our act together. For example, finding a name would be good.
A gig.
Yeah, a gig would be good. Anyway, found Jason, because they were old mates.
I thought they were terrific. So Cameron said, they could use a demo tape, and I had a 4-track recorder. I was still already into recording a bit. So I recorded 5 songs, I reckon. There were a couple of real poppy ones, and this is one of those.
This is one of those. So
And
this is an early uni song, I'm guessing.
Okay. And there was and a couple of more sinister and nasty things, which were very appealing too.
I was a big fan of The Clouds and Club Hoy and Indigo Girls, and you can kind of hear that in this song.
We Miss You, Justine. It was nice. Justine used to sing on this. Liz from this band had twin lead vocals to a spectacular effect. Both these guys sing beautifully together. So we've been missing Justine, but just in this song because I can hear all the bits she used to sing. Pushing 9 a.m, Chloe. It's been a while.
Alright. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pushing 9 a.m. I was crawling across the floor, through the alarm clock at the radio, on my way to get the door. I can't find the world today, it's late already, go away. Freezing shower, so what's new? Kicked a pot plant, thought of you. Climbed the counter for the coffee, I should be calling you. Don't have time for that today, it's late already, go away. When life goes by so quickly and you feel you're just a blur, the mumble vaguely to yourself and think of something else. You know you just can't keep putting life on the shelf. Maybe it's time that you woke up to yourself. Still the lights are red, thoughts of you fly through my head. Try to whistle and forget you, did you mean the things you said? Don't do this to me today, it's late already, go away. When life goes by so quickly and you feel you're just a blur, the mumble vaguely to yourself and think of something else. You know you just can't keep putting life on the shelf. Maybe it's time that you woke up to yourself. All this time I never knew all the things I put you through. I can't sit and think about you while you think about me too. I'll make time for you today. a shell. Maybe it's time that you woke up to yourself.
That's one school song, and here's another. I wrote this under hypnosis. A couple of songs. Well, I believe so anyway. When I went to Red Bend, the last of my 17 changes of school, I met a few blokes, Michael Bradbury in particular. He was from Orange here, and we were in Forbes, and he reckoned he could hypnotise people. And I don't really have any idea whether I could be hypnotised or not, and I'm still not quite sure what happened. But one of the things he used to do was he'd hypnotise me, and, well, he did all sorts of horrible things, but one of them... I don't know why I put up with it, really. Because every now and again he'd take me into a house and he'd play me my first record, and of course I hadn't made any records or anything, you know. So there were bits of music that I pull out of wherever that comes from when you're just kind of zonked out on, I don't know, any experts on hypnosis out there? I've never really done it since, except for a little bit of self-hypnosis stuff. Anyway, there were songs that that came out of that, and this is one of those. And I wrote it, it was 1985, and I called it The Time Before Then, I think. But it's the same song that keeps cropping up. So I sang it here and there. It was used in a play that I was part of with my friend Meg Trelaw, my English teacher, in a play called Painting Angels. We used this instrumentally. And then I left school, and it became a really common one in my repertoire then, and things kind of kept coming up with this song. And when we went to do with people, missing people, that's kind of what the song's all about. And then just when we thought, Chloe heard it and kind of said, oh, I don't even know how it worked, but it just worked out that it was a good idea for Chloe to sing it. It sounded good, that's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so Chloe sang it, and we worked it up for the first album. I guess we've been gigging it here and there. And just when we were about to record, my English teacher Meg Trelaw died way too young, way too young. She was a formidable and, well, one of the best teachers I ever met in all those schools I wandered through. She was great. She was particularly good for me when I was kind of hungry for stuff to learn but couldn't always find it in the classroom. So she fed me all kinds of wonderful things. So we recorded before on the album with yet another kind of incarnation of the song referring to loss and missing people, I guess. And then, yeah, all of a sudden it's come up again. So this goes back to 1985, before I even owned this beautiful thing. Don't know what I wrote it on.
street and someone calls your name, twisting and a turning, you know who's to blame. Standing in the hotel door, just like the time before, the time before.
It's a song from 1985 that keeps. Well, it's been a long
Just
time
keeps
on,
going.
to be honest, since we played it, but I'm happy to have had the chance. Thanks for your company out there. Thanks for choosing us over the Beatles. It seems a fair enough choice to make. Maybe the last sort of episode of that Get Back show's on tonight, and we're lining it up for midnight viewing.
Yeah, we'll be there next. Look. Got our sponsor here.
All right, we'll whack through this one really quickly. This is the Mongrel Black Dog. When I first went to Red Bend College, I'd been trying to play guitar for about 18 months on the farm, but I was just teaching myself from records. I really had very little in the way of actual instruction. It was just listening to records, work it out, listening to records, work it out. But I enrolled in music. One of the things that tempted me to go to year 11 and 12 was, well, Mum and Dad offered to buy me a guitar, kind of bribed me into not leaving school, I think, when I needed money for my music career. Nothing's changed. It's changed a lot, actually. I've been managed to make it our job for...
Seems to include buying a lot of guitars, but not selling them.
Well, you wouldn't sell them.
No, you wouldn't sell them.
Anyway, the story went along the lines of you had to perform in year 11 and 12, HSC music. You had to perform every Friday in the music class, and I didn't even know what the word meant. I just had this stuff that I'd make up and bash away at, and it didn't sound like something you'd play in a music class. So I was challenged by the music teacher to write a song that you could play in the music class that was proper for the sort of the gravitas of the situation in a music class. And that was like a red rag to a bull, and this is the song that came out. I was playing in a band called the Exploding Cats.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's the only recording I have of that year, probably. Maybe is the Exploding Cats doing this song. It's got the best out-of-tune guitar solo I've ever heard. I think it was Peter Collins, maybe Steve Keogh, I don't know. It's very good. Mongrel Black Dog, this is for you, Mr. Drummond, wherever you may be, and the seriousness of your music class. Black dog, he was walking on down the road. Well, among the black dog, he was trying to loosen his load. Well, among the black dog, he's a real bad son of a bitch. Well, among the black dog, he was walking on down the street. Black dog ain't got no soul at all. Banjo. Favorite stories. Well, among the black dog, he was walking on down the road. Well, among the black dog, he was trying time lose me alone. Well, the mongrel black dog got hit by a very big. The mongrel black dog got hit by a whopping great. The mongrel black dog got hit by a fucking great truck. So that's what I gave him, and I left music straight after. Mr. Drummond seemed to be in on the joke, and I thought it would have gone all right, but music was scaring me because I had to perform, and so I just couldn't. I hadn't done anything like that. I could obviously move chords around to have all those, but that's about all I had. And so I left. I went to chemistry, but chemistry scared me even more. So I crawled back into music class, and I thought Mr. Drummond had been cool about the joke, just doing a bit of cool stuff because he'd asked for something proper. And he seemed cool about it, but later on it was to reappear on my record as a black mark when I spent a bit of I got a bit of an extra holiday from Red Bend College for a couple of weeks, which is much appreciated. It was great to go away for 2 weeks, but it was also nice to be able to go back and finish off the tests. We promised new songs, and here's another one.
Well, this goes right back to those early songs. Remember, we played Sun Beats Down maybe a couple of weeks ago, and this is definitely of that ilk. It's of that era. I don't know what it was. There was a song with there was a movie with Michelle Pfeiffer on a piano. Do you remember that movie?
No, but I'll watch it if you
picture it anyway. But so this song hasn't actually been. We've never recorded it. We've never really released it. I don't know that we've. Did we play it in public?
I doubt it. No, it was one of the ones we wrote in those first 6 months in Mossman. That little sort of bowl tile I had in Mossman on Sirius Cove, costing next to nothing to live in that beautiful place. And Chloe and I spent our first 6 months together there writing, just writing all the time. And this is definitely one of these songs from that time. But no, it didn't fit any gig at the time, so probably this is the first time ever, I'd say. Honey, I'm afraid now.
Honey, I'm afraid now that you mean so much to me. I never held on so tight with both my hands. I wonder if you understand how close I am to breaking. Maybe it's this give and take, the wash of love inside me, sucking me dry, filling me up till I'm higher than a kite, and I can't face the drop below. Face the drop below.
That goes a long way back, Chloe. For us anyway, 30 years ago. We've got 2 left, and we want to do sort of what we did with the first show, is we've played stuff from all over, but focused in on a certain time in our life. And in 2 weeks, on the 11th of December, we'll come back and we'll do it all again, but pick up the story, somewhere when we're back in Millthorpe.
Back out here again.
But we lived, as I mentioned before, on a place called Ryland. It was just a little property near Taranah, off the highway. If you're familiar with Bathurst and Lithgow, picture sort of a little bit in between there, south of the highway. Taranah's a great place. I used to love living there because as a kid, and I mean like a teenager, I used to go out there with Ian Large on a Sunday afternoon and play pool at the Taranah Hotel. It was our favourite kind of place. And the old Yet Home Roadhouse was there in those days too, so it'd be raisin toast on the way home, and they were good times. And we used to play there a bit when we lived out at Ryland too. But it was just nice to be back on a farm, in a place where we could have sessions, where wandering folkies could stay. But I guess part of what we've done with these 2 shows, and we'll continue to do, is talk about what came along to influence us. Well, I've got to mention the Hillbilly Hour on 2PK in Parks. I don't know what it was about that stuff that really got me, even when, as a kid, you might have thought it was uncool. I think part of it was that I knew about the places they were singing about, but it was more than that.
There's commitment.
This most beautiful country music can be most magical music. It carries a spirit that very few musics can get near, and I like it. And it can also, the first couple of verses are basically telling you what happened.
Yep.
It is a mixture. This is in that heavy time when we're copying being the beneficiaries of enormous amounts of traditional Australian stuff from the very bottom of the dustiest piles of tapes, from big channels like Alan Musgrove and Greg O'Leary and the Harvest Moon Band, from Rob Willis, from Mike and the crew in Bathurst, from David and really all the stuff from Merrow being handed down, meeting people like Mark Walters and those people, and just picking up whatever we could, whenever we could. And we had Harvest Moon to stay. It was a very, very fun couple of weeks, really. They came and went a couple of times, but it was a long time. And we did lots of stories about that. But one of the nicest ones is I'd just written this song. And like I say, what you hear, it's exactly what happened. It's almost funny enough to remember, as I say. I was just sitting there entertaining myself, really. And then along came Harvest Moon, and as Chloe mentioned earlier, we used to tax the touring folkies a song. So if you came to stay, you'd have to record it. We'd get the boombox out and record a song. And one of the things that Harvest Moon gave us, amongst many songs and tunes, was a recording of Eileen McCoy. Now, I'd already called this song the Uneven Song, and along this CD of Eileen's traditional Australian music, there was a tune called The Uneven Tune, an unusual tune, which just happened to fit perfectly.
It's wonderful when that happens. Alright.
So, the Uneven Song and the Uneven Tune, or we talk about it earnestly as Uneven Song.
Yes.
Country song ringing, there was nothing to be done, and I felt like singing, so I sang a country song. Well, how could that be wrong? For no one but the sheep out the fly screen door. And when you're singing country, it's right to see grass and trees and all the rolling hills where cool breezes blow. A beer or two at sundown, 3 or 4 when Friday rolls around. In country you sing of what you know. And the sheep are leaving, they've all had enough. The dog's nearly breaking his chain. Well, the drought ends and the flood begins. It's the country that keeps me sane. Oh, it's the country that keeps me. place that I live in, where Ireland was christened. It keeps one border on the railway line, and at night when I'm dreaming, that train comes a-screaming. Uneven country songs fill my mind, and the sheep are leaving, they've all had enough. The dog's nearly breaking his chain. Well, the drought ends and the flood begins. It's the country that keeps me sane. It's the country that keeps me. It was very nice to be back in the country. I got to say, it felt like I'd been in Sydney for very good reasons, but for too long. Hey, we're going to leave you tonight with a setting that we wrote for Henry Lawson, the same place we started, but at the end of our time in Bathurst, or our first time around the Bathurst area. Chloe's dad had, I think, pointed out these words to us, but we're not sure about that. But it certainly became one of his favourites. He loved Lawson like we do, and
we were fortunate enough we'd run into Chris Kempster and all those amazing crew at this time, and done it. So we came along just at the tail end of Chris organising his enormous book with all the input from everybody, and did this one actually make it in?
This one didn't get in.
The other one did. The Shearers song did, and this one did.
They're both in the new edition, though. They're both, right. So. The point of that story really, like Chloe says, is we got to meet Chris Kempster and a lot of wonderful people working in that team who showed me the length and breadth and depth of Lawson's setting in Australia. I knew there were songs around. I knew a bit of Slim, and like I said, we were singing Phil Lobel's version of Past Caring by then. But I didn't realise just how many great songs had come out of Henry's work. And Chris sort of invited us to be part of that show very quickly. And these were the two settings we had that we had written. And, we sang Past Caring, I think, and Freedom on the Wallaby when John Dengate wasn't there. And, Anyway, thank you for coming, for being part of the second of three, we think three, maybe four, original music shows. We're ending with a setting. We were starting to set a lot more things by this time, but there's some good... Well, we had a good streak of songwriting just after we're finishing the show for the next show. A couple of... It was sparked by travel again, especially. So, looking forward to the next show. Oh, Peter and everyone out there, Marg, thank you for coming, Margaret. Thank you, everybody. It's a free show, but we do put the hat out. Yes, is that what... Yeah. We do,
thank you. And if you're interested... if you're thinking of donating, we've just uploaded these 3 albums. So the very first ancient albums of... But those 2 in particular have a lot of our original songs on them in the settings that we had at that time. So if you're interested in hearing those, they're download for pay whatever you like. So that's another way to donate. This time around you can have an album.
This album was recorded in Sydney and mastered by the masterful Meredith Brooks. She is such a great woman. She had been head mastering engineer and for a long time at Sony and other places in Sydney. She was independent. She still talked about spirals as the gap between songs. I loved doing that. And Meredith passed away not long after doing that. So we didn't touch that one. But these 2 probably at the time could have used a little bit more of a mastering touch. So we put them under the microscope and just gave them just a bit of a...
Squished them just a little, but not much.
Hopefully they'll sound good. Even if you're on little iPhone speakers or whatever.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Anyway, thank you for coming, guys. And if you can chip a bit in through the website, that would be fantastic. Second last show for the year. We'll miss it. We'll miss it, I think. Yeah, Christmas is calling.
That's right. Christmas tree up, 1st of December.
Yes. I've still got to get over Joanna's birthday. I'm going to be hungover for weeks. Those chocolate honeycomb things, oh man.
This is a bit of Henry Lawson's warmth of heart to leave you with. Oh, this is a song of the old lights that came to my heart like a hymn, And this is a song for the old lights, for the lights that we thought grew dim, that came to my heart to comfort me, and I pass it along to you. Oh, here is a hand to the good old friend who turns up as good as new. And this is a song for the campfire, out west where the stars shine bright. This is a song for the campfire, where the old mates yarn tonight, where the old mates yarn of the old days, and their numbers are all too few. Oh, this is a song for the good old times that will turn up as good as new. Oh, this is a song for the old foe, though we've both grown wiser now. And this is a song for the old foe, and we're sorry we had that row. And this is a song for the old love, the love that we thought untrue. Oh, this is a song of the dear old love that comes back as good as new. Oh, this is a song for the black sheep, for the black sheep that fled from town. And this is a song for the brave heart, for the brave heart that lived it down. And this is a song for the battler who sees it through. Oh, here is a song for the broken heart that turns up as good as new. And this is a song of the brave mate, be he bushman, Scot or Ross. A song for the mates we will stick to, for the mates who have stuck to us. And this is a song for the old creed, to do as a man should do, till the Lord takes us all to a wider world, where we'll turn up as good as new. Till the Lord takes us all to a wider world, where we'll turn up as good as new.
So we finish back where we started, setting Henry Lawson to music in Bathurst. We pick up the story a bit later on in the next trip and talk about our adventures as we wrote songs hanging off the back of our work with the tradition and of all kinds. And take care out there. Hope things are going well.
Yeah, glad to hear some of you are singing and playing again.
Yeah, the gigs
Wonderful.
are coming back a little bit. Got a big list of potential gigs if everything goes well for the sort of into the spring and
That's right.
autumn next year, I should
Holding
say.
out for that under 12 vaccine.
Yeah,
It's
bring it
coming.
on.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Good night. Thank you very much.